A mirror was locked for 300 years, until a child looked in. Have you ever looked at an old mirror and seen a ghostly figure staring back at you? Have you ever wondered if those old mirrors can transport you to another time or place? Well, today we're going to explore just that with the story of a locked mirror that was hidden away for centuries until a curious child accidentally broke the curse and opened it. But before we dive into the story, please remember to give us a thumbs up so you won't miss any new stories in the future. Let's get started. The city was known for its skilled craftsmen who created some of the most exquisite works of art in Europe. But his heirs ignored the instructions and hid the mirror instead. He had no idea that he was about to change history forever. At the end of the passageway, he found an iron-wrought door with a lock on it. The diary mentioned that the key to this door was hidden somewhere in the attic. The air was stale and heavy, and the only light came from flickering torches on the walls. As he walked deeper into the tunnel, he could hear strange noises echoing around him, whispers and murmurs that seemed to come from another time. Suddenly, the passage opened up into a large cavernous space, and Peter found himself in a medieval marketplace. He demanded, "How did you get here?" Peter panicked and tried to run. He could hear the nobleman talking to his soldiers, and he listened intently. As he pushed aside the branches, he found a clearing, and in the center stood a small cottage. Smoke was rising from its chimney, and light spilled out from its windows. Peter hesitated, not knowing whether he should enter or not. Then he turned his attention to Peter, and his eyes widened in surprise. As Peter stared into the mirror, he could see his own reflection staring back at him. But there was something different about it. It was younger, healthier, and full of life. He could see the passage of time, the aging and the decay, and he understood that the mirror was a window to his soul, showing him both the good and the bad. "You," he said, "you were the one who helped me, weren't you?" Peter blushed and nodded shyly. The nobleman walked over to Peter and extended his hand. "Until next time, stay curious and keep looking for the magic in everyday life." "I owe you my life," he said. "How can I ever repay you?" Peter hesitated. He didn't want anything from the nobleman, but he thought for a moment. "I would like to see the mirror," he said. The nobleman smiled. "Of course," he said. "It is my most prized possession." Suddenly, he heard voices coming from inside. The men from earlier were gathered around a table, drinking and laughing. Peter could hear them talking about the robbery and how they had gotten away with it. He had a life to return to, but he would never forget what he had seen and experienced. As he stepped away from the mirror, he knew that he had changed forever. Now, dear audience, it's your turn. What would you do if you stumbled upon a magical mirror that showed you your soul? Would you be tempted to look inside and risk losing yourself in the process? Let us know in the comments below. He knew he had to do something, but he was outnumbered and outgunned. He considered running away, but he couldn't let the men get away with their crime. The nobleman was offering a reward for anyone who could capture the robbers and bring them to justice. Peter knew he could be the hero of this story, but he was scared and unsure if he could do it alone. He had done it. He had saved the nobleman and the town. Peter was exhausted and hungry, and he decided to find a place to rest before returning home. He came across a small inn and walked inside. As he sat down at a table, he noticed a crowd of people gathered around a man in the corner. The man was talking animatedly, and Peter couldn't help but listen in. However, he remembered the men mentioning a hideout in the forest. If he could find it, he might be able to get the upper hand. Peter set off into the forest, following the directions the men had given. He searched for hours, but the sun began to set and he still hadn't found anything. But the men were quick to grab him and bring him back. "What are you doing here?" the leader asked. Peter hesitated, not knowing what to say. He could see the men inside, and he formulated a plan. He quietly moved away from the cottage and gathered some dry leaves and twigs. He then returned to the window and set fire to the dry material. The flames spread quickly, and before long, the entire cottage was engulfed in flames. Peter ran as fast as he could, and soon the men came running out, each grabbing a different weapon. They looked around wildly, trying to figure out where the fire had come from. In the chaos, Peter slipped past them unnoticed and made his way to the road. I was just walking by," he stammered. The men didn't believe him, but they didn't have time to question him further. The nobleman had raised an alarm, and soon soldiers were racing towards them. The men dropped Peter and ran into the forest, and he watched as they disappeared into the trees. After searching for a while, Peter found a loose floorboard that revealed a small keyhole. Peter was stunned by what he was seeing. It was as if he had traveled back in time. Peter knew he should stay out of it, but he couldn't resist the chance to be part of something exciting. He followed the men as they made their way out of town. and soon they stopped and hid in the bushes near the road. A carriage came rolling along, and Peter could hear the nobleman inside. The leader of the men gave a signal, and they all jumped out and surrounded the carriage. Peter hid in the bushes, watching as the robbery unfolded before him. Peter decided to explore further and soon found himself in a bustling tavern. People were drinking and eating, and music filled the air. Peter sat down at a table and ordered a drink. As he sipped the ale, he noticed a group of men talking in hushed voices. They were clearly up to something sinister, and Peter couldn't help but eavesdrop on their conversation. He inserted the key from the box and turned it. With a loud creak, the door swung open, revealing a room filled with dust and cobwebs. And in the center of the room stood a full-length mirror. It was unlike any mirror Peter had ever seen before, with an ornate silver frame that seemed to shimmer and change in the dim light. Peter was just a curious kid who loved exploring his family's old house. He could see his own reflection, but it was distorted and distorted, as if he were looking through a heat haze. Peter reached out to touch the mirror, and as he did, the reflection rippled and a voice echoed in his head. "Do not touch," it said, "for I am the keeper of souls." Peter jumped back in surprise, but his curiosity got the better of him. He wanted to know more, to understand what this mirror was and why it had been hidden for so long. He knew he shouldn't, but he reached out again, this time gently pressing his forehead against the cold glass. As he did, the world around him seemed to fade away and he was pulled into the mirror. He had heard rumors of a secret mirror that was hidden somewhere in the attic, and he was determined to find it. As Hiram family heirlooms, he felt a strange pull towards an old, ornately carved wooden box. When he opened it, he found a key and a diary. The diary belonged to his ancestor, Johann, and it contained the key to the attic's many secrets. They kept it secret from everyone, even their closest family members, for fear that its power would corrupt them as it had corrupted Johann. But they couldn't hide it forever, and eventually the truth came out. As he worked, he poured all his skill and energy into the project, determined to create a masterpiece that would satisfy his demanding customer. But as the mirror began to take shape, Balthazar realized that he had created something truly special, something that transcended mere craftsmanship. It was a portal to another world. Among them was a mirror maker named Balthazar Reich, whose reputation had reached far and wide. The mirror was more than just a reflection of his face staring back at him. It was a window into his soul, revealing his deepest thoughts and emotions. But as he gazed into its depths, he also saw something else, something that terrified him. He saw his own mortality, his own decay, and the inevitable end that awaited him. One day, he received an order from a wealthy merchant named Johann Dietrich von Bissing. He wanted a mirror unlike any other, a mirror that would capture his soul. The year was 1715, and the place was Nuremberg, Germany. Balthazar set to work immediately. He gathered the finest materials, including a sheet of pure silver and a crystal so clear it was almost invisible. When Johann saw the finished product, he was stunned, and so the mirror was locked away, hidden from the world for 300 years until a child accidentally looked in. But how did Johann die? And what happened to the mirror after he passed away? We'll find out in just a moment. Overcome with fear and regret, he turned away from the mirror and ordered Balthazar to keep it hidden until his death. Johann died a few months later, and his will stipulated that the mirror was to be destroyed. One day, a young boy named Peter stumbled upon the mirror while exploring his family's attic. Peter discovered a hidden mechanism in the wall that revealed a secret passageway. As Peter approached the mirror, he could feel a strange energy emanating from it. When Peter woke up, he found himself in a dark and narrow passageway. Stalls and shops lined the narrow streets, and people in period clothing went about their daily business. They were planning to rob a nobleman who was traveling through the area. Suddenly, one of the men turned and spotted Peter. "Who are you?" Peter then cautiously emerged from his hiding spot and approached the carriage. Just when he was about to give up, he spotted a small opening in the trees. Taking a deep breath, Peter crept closer to the cottage and peeked through a window. He didn't look back, and he didn't stop running until he reached the marketplace. It was the nobleman. He was thanking the people of the town for their help in capturing the robbers and recovering his goods. He led Peter to a secret chamber where the mirror was kept. It was guarded by 2 soldiers, and they stepped aside respectfully as Peter approached. Peter knew that he couldn't stay in this world forever. Thank you for joining us on this journey through time and reflection. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on our amazing stories.